say that the POM wants to lose.
Hello, everyone. Hi, Ashley.
Hello.
Hello, everyone. Hi, Linda.
Can I just do a quick screen share just to have a welcome screen on when everyone joins?
Okay. Do I need to have a presentation or do I just talk?
Oh, okay.
No, I'm asking.
If you have a presentation ready, that's great. If you just want to have a talk with us, then that's also great. So whatever is best for you.
I have a presentation that I will use as a guideline, and I can always give it later if people are interested in it. But I thought it's better to, have a conversation.
Yeah.
Than to read PowerPoints.
That is true. We look forward to that.
Yeah, probably the internet line's fine this side. We can't both have sound on. We're going to have to be careful.
Great. Stop. Good afternoon, fellow students, staff, and guests. My name is Ashley Illis. I'm a PhD student at the Center for Bioinformatics and Computational Biology at Stellenbosch University. I'm also the Tygerberg Campus Graduate Advisor for Golden Key Stellenbosch Chapter. So on behalf of Golden Key Stellenbosch Chapter and Tygerberg Postgraduate Student Council, I am pleased to welcome you all to our second virtual Tygerberg Career Fair. We were very excited when our keynote speakers agreed to join us and interact with us today. So without further ado, I will hand over my virtual mic to Lauren, who will introduce our first keynote speaker for today.
Good afternoon, everyone. I feel honored to introduce you to our first speaker for today. Laboratory component at 2020 Science. This course is also available in an e-learning format. At 2020 Science, the learning experience is augmented with the fourth industrial revolution skills, such as critical thinking, communication, interpersonal and presentation skills. The 2020 Science transformational learning format is guided by a conversational approach to support participants as individuals and in groups with activities to address life and work-related issues through peer learning. Participants voice life experiences, explore new ideas, and interrogate diversity, biases, and assumptions. Linda believes that effective communication is the foundation of all successful work opportunities and growth. She has been awarded the Southern Africa Distributorship for Invitrogen, now Thermo Fisher Scientific, and is the founding member and driver of 2020 Science, a fourth industrial revolution skills training company, and is proudly inducted as an honorary member at the Golden Key International Honor Society, Stellenbosch chapter, for leadership in the science communication space. I now hand over the platform to you, Linda.
Thank you for that introduction. Can everybody hear me? I hope so. So what we're talking about today is what are the job opportunities? What are the opportunities for graduates after studying within the life science community? And I've actually broken it down into, what I want us to do today is actually have a conversation. And I realize we can't have a real life conversation. However, I want you to think about the things as I mentioned them and decide what it is that you feel about them. Because before we talk about job opportunities, we have to talk about where am I going? Where are you going? So I thought the first thing that we should be talking about is honesty. You should be honest with yourself. When you decided to embark on this mission into life sciences, you were between 16 and 18 years old. And now it's probably about 10 years later. And do you still want to be in this field? Are you a true academic? Maybe you want to do something else. Maybe you want to do science writing, or maybe you want to work on short-term projects versus longer-term projects. So this is the type of honesty that you need to have with yourself. You must also decide about whether you stay within the academic environment because it's a comfort zone. You know the people, they're like-minded people, you're familiar with them. Maybe you like the idea of traveling, or maybe you like the hours. Many people stay within academia because of fear. Income, will I generate another income in another field? Maybe you feel you don't want to start learning all over again. Would I have to learn if I go into a new field? And of course, there's this thing of what will my peers think of me? What will my parents think of me? I've been studying something for 8 to 10 years, and now I decide to do something else. So that also holds people back from leaving academia. The other thing I think is silo thinking. Many people think that if you studied in a certain direction, genomics or virology, microbiology, biotechnology, you must stay within that field. And I don't think that that is necessarily true. I think what you have done at university is you have grown your ability to take huge amounts of data, to crystallize it, to analyze it, and then to condense it, obviously, and then to regurgitate it. And by regurgitation, not a very good word, I know, but I mean, you can do report writing, you can do presentations, you can do PowerPoint presentations, you can do one-on-one type of presentations. So that's the skill that you learned at university. I think it is Einstein that said that education is not the learning of facts, but it's the training of the mind to think. So this is what you have to offer for the world out there. And then lastly, I think you need to start thinking entrepreneurially. And by that, I mean, you don't necessarily have to start your own business, but you must start thinking of how you can utilize, how you can use what you have learned to make money. Because let's face it, less than 30% of people who study can stay in academia. So what can you do with your knowledge to make money out there? So maybe it's an application, maybe you can work on a diagnostic test or something, social outreach, maybe you want to put together a diagnostic van and go to rural areas and do diagnostics over them. When you think entrepreneurial, I want you to remember one very important thing. Being an entrepreneur does not mean that you're alone. Entrepreneurial these days is all about collaborations. I have my strength, which could be a technical proficiency. And for all the other things, you can have collaborators or partners. So you don't have to be able to do everything. You don't need to know everything about marketing and finance and running an office. All of those you can actually outsource or collaborate with in other people. So why I'm also saying this is, according to the World Economic Forum, well, if you look anywhere, everybody comes up with their own top 10 skills that you need within the fourth industrial revolution, or that you would need by 2025. Now, the World Economic Forum came up with the 10 best skills that you need, but then they condensed them to 4 categories. And why I bring this up is you already have this at your disposal, except that you're not really thinking or necessarily thinking about it. The top skill, number 1 skill that you need by 2025 is problem solving. And that's what you've been doing in a laboratory. That's what you've been doing in the environment that you've been into up to this point, is problem solving. The second best skill is self-management, and surely you have that as well. You've been talking to your PI or your professor, whoever assists you with your degree. But after that, it's self-management. You go back to the lab, you decide when you're going to do what. So self-management is a skill that you already have. The next one is working with other people, in other words, being a team player or team skills. And that you definitely have as well within a laboratory concept. And then the 4th skill that they talk about is technology and the use of the technology and the development thereof. So you actually are in possession of all the skills that you need to find a job out there. Now, of course, it's up to getting that job, which is the not so easy part. And when I think about it, I actually do not envy people of your generation, because so many of you have been told by your parents, your immediate family when you grew up, is that you must find your passion, your purpose in life. And if you do that, then the whole family is happy with you. Except it's not that easy to find your passion and your purpose, especially at a young age. It kind of grows on you. So I think that's just what I want to say. If at this stage you don't know what your passion and your purpose is, it's not the worst thing that can happen to you. If you already have a passion, that's amazing. And the harder you work, the more you will like it. Purpose, I think, so by purpose, I mean you do something, and that's why you get up in the morning. If you do something and you do it well, if you do courses to augment your knowledge, that can actually become your passion. So passion and purpose, you will get there. No big problem. So why can I talk about this? As you've heard from Lauren, I'll just give you an exceedingly brief timeline that I followed. So I started with a degree in agriculture, biochemistry degree, but it was in the agricultural faculty. I went on to do my master's degree. After my master's degree, I went to the Weizmann University and I worked on HIV, came back to South Africa, started a PhD at UCT. After 3 years of my PhD, I decided not to complete my PhD. So many people were upset with me, but it was the right choice for me to make because I was fortunate or unfortunate enough to be in a class within a laboratory where there were 3 exceptionally brilliant physicians who came to do their PhD. So they qualified as doctors, specialized, and then came and did the PhD like as the cherry on top. And I looked at them and I realized I could never be that magnificent. So let me find something where I can shine in. Let me find something that makes me truly happy. So I left academia. I became a representative. After that, 2 years after that, I became a technical director within the company. The distributorship that we had was sold part and parcel to another company where I was national director, product manager. And then subsequently, I became the distributor for Life Technologies that became Invitrogen, that's now Thermo Fisher for Southern Africa. And then I retired at the grand old age of 50, which is a big, big, big mistake because I didn't think about what will I do for the next 30 to 40 years of my life. In fact, it's 40 since my dad will turn 90 next year. So I went back to the CPGR where I did sales and marketing again for a year. And then I started almost call it like a little training academy. So training because it's a very effective marketing tool, but also training because it's my love. And over the years, and this is what I mean, I found a purpose and my purpose became my passion. So training became my passion. I traveled all over Southern Africa and realized that there's such a need for technical proficiency training, but also for training in interpersonal skills. So I left CPGR and I started my own company together with an angel investor called 2020 Science, where we do both. So it's technical proficiency and communication and interpersonal skills. So that is the road, my road, showing that you do not necessarily have to stay within academia. You still use the knowledge that you used while you were studying, but you can turn it into something else. So what do I advise you to do is to try and find out, be honest with yourself and decide what is it that I would like to do, in what sector would I like to play in. And for that, you probably need to do a bit of research. You need to have discussions with experts, with other people. So it's pretty much the same as deciding upon a research project. Then you need to see if you have all the necessary qualifications to be in that field. And then you have to see if there are companies who will accept people or someone like you. And then very importantly, you have to look around you and see if there are networks that you can utilize to get into that area. At this point, it's actually important to know that between 70 and 85%, depending on where you get your information from. So between 70 and 85% of positions that people have are through their networks. So if you haven't done that already, start using your networks, start broadening your networks, make them bigger. And then lastly, I want to say on this topic is don't be deterred by perceived failure. You are not a failure if you do not stay in academia. You're not a failure if you decide to change your mind. You're entitled to change your mind. You're entitled to change the direction that you are taking in life. So just a quick guide of what I would recommend people to do before they embark on this life-changing experience, leaving academia, is the first thing that's incredibly important, and I suppose that's what 2020 Science is about, but there are so many online companies who do the same thing. There are so many companies in South Africa that do that. Of course, not as well as me, but anyway, you can also go for guidance at the universities itself. Is make sure that you have the fourth industrial revolution skills to make yourself employable. So once again, if you go to the literature, you will see that employability these days depend more on your soft skills than on the hard skills. Soft skills means that a company want to take you into their fold. They want you to be part of their organization. You saw how easy, in a way, in retrospect, 2020 hindsight, it is to learn hard skills. And that's what companies feel as well. As long as you have the soft skills that will make you fit into their company, that will help regenerate and innovate their company, they are going to employ you. So what do I mean by these soft skills? I mean communication and interpersonal skills. The next thing you need to look at is your CV, the composition of your CV, because remember, your CV is about your personal branding. Who am I? What do I want to show people out there? So get help with your CV. I mentioned it before. Network, network, network. That's where jobs are going to come from. Online profile is very important. And by that, I mean LinkedIn. Don't really care about the rest. And then make sure that you get assistance if this is not your strength, with your interviewing skills, your presentation skills, and obviously your written skills at this point should be fine. And then lastly, where do I think you can go? What fields can you go into if you don't want to stay in academia? I would think that you can go into data analytics or bioinformatics. I really think that's the future. If you don't know a lot about it, and if you don't know about whether this is good for you or not, I would say see if you can do an introduction course and see if this works for you. Am I interested in it? Is this something that I can do for the rest of my life? It's a very highly paid job. I don't think that that's the be all and end all of everything in life, but it certainly helps if you have debt. If it does in fact pay well. You can go into business, so that can be, you can become an ethics consultant, you can become a life science advisor, you can become a grant officer, you can join government organizations like the NRF, the CSRR, or not-for-profit organizations. You can follow my lead and go into sales and marketing. You can become a scientific writer, you can write blogs or for magazines, you can go into the clinical or the medical arena. So people who work with clinical trials, data management, bioinformatics, liaison officer, I think that's very important to write or to explain to people scientific or medical terms in layman terms. So there are jobs like that as well. You can join private companies. There are quite a number of startup companies available within the biotech arena, where you can be a technician. You can also go into health and wellness or become an entrepreneur. Nothing bad about that. And then lastly, what I thought of is people can, I know of 2 PhDs from biotech who became patent lawyers. And obviously you can also go into something like forensics. So those are my thoughts on what it is that you can do with your degrees. Are there any questions? Hello?
Please, anyone, feel free to unmute yourself and go ahead and ask a question.
That's wonderful. I thought I was talking to no one there.
Hi, Linda. It's Liesl here.
Hi, Lisa.
I always just think it's so nice for you to give us some insight into the world outside of academia. And it's so important for our audience to note that you were also in academia. So you are trading both sides of the fence. And I am specifically thankful because you had a similar conversation or in the line with our postdocs not too long ago when we invited you. So it's very valuable. And I think many times when we're in academia, we feel this is where we need to be. And like you mentioned, there's all this pressure from outside, you know, will I be a failure if I leave academia at any stage when I do come back? Am I being seen as a failure? I do think that every opportunity, if one takes it and grabs it with open hands, one can make the best of it. And like you say, some of the top skills that you mentioned, I just really want to reiterate how important it is. And sometimes we don't realize that we have those skills because we have tunnel vision and thinking when we're doing our degrees, this is all that we need to focus on. You are part of a team, you are working in a lab, you are, working on those problem solving skills, you are being a team player, you are working with others, we are advancing in technology. So it's really good to always note and identify that you have those skills. And it's not an additional skill that you need to maybe acquire, but maybe just fine tune as you advance in your years of experience. So I just wanted to, not a question, but just to comment and say thank you so much for taking the time to be with us. We really appreciate it. Thank you.
It's an absolute pleasure. I know it's a bit daunting at the end of your studies to make this decision about where to next. And as you say, the pressure from family and friends, everybody has something to say about your decision. And I think that's what's incredibly important. Once you start working, it's somewhere where you're going to spend 8 hours a day. Make sure you like being there. Make sure you would like to do that job. Thank you.
Thanks so much.
I'm just going to quickly also just jump in here. It's so important that you love what you do, and we have to do that. I also want to just mention that I had 6 years of working experience not outside of academia, but between a master's and a PhD. And that also gave me a little bit of break. At the same time, I also felt at the time, I'm losing out on academia. But during that time, a lot of good growth and development happened. So yes, make it count. Thank you. I see there's a lot of questions and comments in the chat. I'm going to stop now.
Thanks so much, Linda. That was fantastic. I think it's something that I mention quite often. We live in a world where having a university degree is not unusual anymore. It's not unusual for someone to have a master's or a PhD. So I think those soft skills are very important. It is quite difficult being in academia, sort of bridging the gap to industry. So I don't know if you can maybe suggest sort of in the Cape Town area, sort of if students are interested, how they can potentially go about doing that.
I think the biggest thing that you can do is look on LinkedIn. On LinkedIn, there are so many jobs available, and join companies that you think would be interesting to you. So just offhand, I can think of companies like Synexa, who do diagnostic testing. There's Biovac. Biovac has been employing quite a number of people, obviously, because of the vaccine production. There are I will try and put together a list of these younger companies. I know that there's another company that just started making protein from fly larvae, and quite a number of diagnostic companies. So you must literally go out on LinkedIn and start following those companies, because they do post whenever they have positions available. The only other thing I can think of is for my 2020 Science group, I'll send that link as well. As soon as I find positions available for people within the industry, I post them. But once again, they all come from these groups. So find it on Facebook, find it on LinkedIn, and that's all I can say. And network, talk.
Yeah. That's amazing. Thanks so much, Linda.
Thank you, Linda. We have a question from the audience, from Haiku. He is asking, would you suggest applying for jobs even if we do not have all the required hard skills? For example, to apply for a bioinformatics job, but lacking some of the skills required, those skills that can be easily learned.
Bioinformatics, I think, is a bit more difficult because it's not something that you're going to learn in a month. And that's why I said data analytics, bioinformatics, there are so many online courses that you can take that will give you the basics. And once you have the basics, then of course you can apply for the position, because within a company, they will always have other people who help you. And although it's not my field, we have a program as well where the people who teach say it's so easy to learn data in bioinformatics and data analytics because the community is so supportive. So if you have data, you're trying to do something with it, all you really have to do is ask the community at large and they will assist you. So in short, my answer is take an introduction course, make sure you know what it is you are signing up for, and then go for it. Try it. No is not the worst thing that can happen to you.
Thank you, Linda. The key message that I took away from your talk today was that having a title in academia does not define you to just settle into that. We are humans and we have many great qualities about us. And thank you for highlighting the importance of soft skills. I also liked how realistic your talk was. Yes, purpose and enjoying what you do is important, but thinking about the financial side is important as well. So thank you for that. So yeah, please feel free to discuss with Linda further on offline. Our next and final speaker is a specialist scientist at the SAMRC Center for Tuberculosis Research. She also holds a joint appointment with Stellenbosch University as a senior researcher in the tuberculosis host genetics group at the Division of Molecular Biology and Human Genetics. Before starting in her current role, she worked for 4 years in industry at the CPGR. Prior to this, Desiree spent more than 10 years abroad working at internationally recognized research institutions, including the J. Craig Center Institute in San Diego, USA, and the Garvan Institute of Medical Research in Sydney, Australia. Desiree's expertise spans across the fields of human genomics, population genetics, genomic technologies, and infectious diseases. Her presentation entitled Beyond Borders and Back tells the story of how her own career path, including the many lessons learned and the wealth of knowledge acquired along the way. She invites you to join her on this journey by giving you a glimpse of her experiences as a scientist, which all started at Stellenbosch University. I now hand over the platform to Dr. Desiree Petersen.
Oh, so apparently I was muted. Good afternoon, everyone. I just turned on my video so that you could all see me, but I would like to share my screen as I do have a presentation that I would like to share with you. Is everyone able to hear me clearly?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. Okay, is everyone able to see my presentation? And it's in presenting mode.
We're not seeing anything at all, Desiree.
Is it? Okay, let me just see. I'm obviously not selecting the right one. Okay, how about now? Can you see?
Perfect.
Okay, great. Okay, so thank you again, Ashley, for the introduction, and thank you to the Golden Key Stellenbosch chapter and the Tygerberg Postgraduate Student Council for the opportunity to present at this year's career fair. Also a special thank you to everyone for joining this presentation. Being back on the Tygerberg campus, it feels like I've was a student here not too long ago. So today I would like to share with you my career journey over the past 15 years, which hopefully gives you some ideas for your own career path and also letting you know what is possible. So when I think about my own career path, I often compare it to a winding road and not always knowing where this may lead. This certainly added to the adventure of experiencing new things and meeting interesting people along the way. I was always open to trying something different, which I believe is what led to the many opportunities to grow as a scientist and also further establish my career. After obtaining my PhD from Stellenbosch University, I decided to move abroad to Sydney, Australia, and pursued a postdoc at the Garvan Institute of Medical Research. After 1 year, our entire research team relocated to the Children's Cancer Institute of Australia, also in Sydney, where I took on a role of a research officer. 3 years later, I was on my way to San Diego, to the United States, to start in a staff scientist position at the J. Craig Venter Institute. After 3 years, I actually returned back to the Garvan Institute of Medical Research as a senior research officer and remained there for 3 years before eventually returning to South Africa, where I took on the position of senior research officer at the CPGR. So then in June this year, I moved over to the SAMRC and Stellenbosch University. And during my last 15 years, I also had multiple training opportunities, including at the Garvan Institute, Maastricht University, National Cancer Institute, and Penn State University. So I know that's quite a mouthful, and so I thought the best would be to actually break it down for you. As we want this to be an interactive session, please feel free to raise your hand, or maybe Ashley, you could just let me know if there are any questions along the way. Okay, so as I mentioned, my journey started at Stellenbosch University, where I spent my first 3 years on main campus. I completed a BSc in Biological Sciences with genetics and microbiology as my major subjects. I was planning to continue with an honors in genetics at main campus when I overheard a classmate mention that they were actually offering a human genetics course on the Tygerberg campus. I had already developed an interest in human genetics during high school, and so for me, it felt like everything was finally falling into place. This was, however, only the beginning of an 8-year-long period at the Tygerberg campus, which resulted in me further obtaining both a master's and a PhD in human genetics and medical virology. Highlights for me during this time included being awarded multiple travel grants, allowing me to attend international conferences, and also receiving the University Medal for Research by a postgraduate student. So both my master's and PhD projects focused on the genetics of HIV/AIDS in South African populations. I received numerous scholarships and traineeships to spend time at international labs. My first time abroad was to the Netherlands, where I spent 3 months at Maastricht University. This is in the southern part of the Netherlands, and it borders Belgium and Germany. So the Netherlands is often known as the country of windmills and bicycles, and it's also where I discovered good brie cheese, which soon became my daily lunch. My next training opportunity was in Sydney, Australia. This was at the Garvan Institute of Medical Research. I think one of my most memorable moments is seeing the Harbour Bridge and the Opera House for the first time. And I immediately knew that this was a city I would not mind returning to one day in the future. My third training opportunity, and where I spent 8 months of my PhD, was the National Cancer Institute in Frederick, Maryland. This is on the east coast of the United States and about an hour's drive from the NIH headquarters, as well as Washington, DC. Being there during the 4th of July celebrations, what is known as the Independence Day, was definitely a treat, but I suffered terribly from the cold once the winter season hit and was happy to come home. All 3 experiences were all completely different. However, it was very enlightening to be learning about all these various cultures and more so different scientific approaches. It also offered me the opportunity to establish both international networks and collaborations. So all my training opportunities resulted in me actually learning a new technology, and this further sparked my interest in advanced genomic technologies. At the Department of Medical Biochemistry at Maastricht University in the Netherlands, I received training for the DHVLC wave system. This is used for the genotyping of genetic mutations, which some of you may also know as known as common variants called SNPs. The training received on the sequenome mass array system at the Garvan Institute was also used for SNP genotyping. And then during my training at the Laboratory of Genomic Diversity at the National Cancer Institute, I was actually able to complete most of the SNP genotyping for my PhD project using the 7900 PCR system. And this then resulted in the data being used for publications for my PhD. So after obtaining my PhD, I worked as a medical scientist at medical virology here at Stellenbosch University on the Tygerberg campus. And I was then faced with the decision to either go to Australia or the United States for a postdoc. At the time, I told myself that I would probably not survive another winter on that East Coast. So I always knew I wanted to return to Sydney and continue my research at the Garvan Institute, especially with this eye-catching DNA helix staircase. I was very fortunate to receive a postdoctoral scholarship. This was from the Friedman Foundation, and this then allowed me to study the genetics of prostate cancer in Australian men. It was also during this time, with the relocation of the entire research team to the Children's Cancer Institute Australia, that I started working on other research projects, investigating genomic diversity in human populations, as well as the genetic diversity in the Tasmanian devil population. Our research team was the first lab in Australia to acquire the Roche 454 Plex instrument, which was one of the first next generation sequencing platforms. I spent a month at the Center for Comparative Genomics and Bioinformatics based at Penn State University, which is in State College in the United States, to receive training. This involved long periods of time working in the lab for 10 to 12-hour shifts. But the training received was definitely beneficial to both myself and the rest of the team, because I actually then went back to Australia and had to train the rest of the team. Upon returning to Australia, I also received training on the Illumina iScan instrument, which is a high-throughput genotyping system used for genome-wide microarrays. So both these two platforms proved to be instrumental in contributing to many novel research efforts. The sequencing and genotyping data generated further then led to two high-impact front cover publications within a span of 1 year in both the journals Nature and PNAS. These were certainly career highlights for me that included the first reported complete sequencing of human genomes from Southern Africa and the analysis of genetic diversity in the endangered Tasmanian devil population. It was, however, the publication on the Southern African genomes that caught the attention of many local and international scientists. Our study characterized the extent of genetic diversity among 5 men representing Khoisan and Bantu-speaking individuals. We presented the complete genome sequences for both Igubi, who you can see here, he was an indigenous Namibian hunter-gatherer, as well as the Archbishop Desmond Tutu, who is of Sotho Tswana and Xhosa descent. Our research team was then approached by Craig Venter. As some of you may know, he is known for leading the first draft sequence of the human genome, and he wanted us to join the J. Craig Venter Institute in San Diego, California. We were 3 team members that joined the J. Craig Venter Institute and relocated to San Diego. As a staff scientist within the genomic medicine program, my research mainly focused on the genetics of prostate cancer in African populations, as well as genomic diversity in Southern African populations, including admixed populations from both South Africa and Namibia. I was also responsible at the time for running the ion torrent sequencing facility, which served as a beta site for testing the ion torrent PGM sequences. So we were getting reagents for free, and we could optimize and just do whatever we needed to do in order to make sure this technology was working for us. After spending 3 years at the J. Craig Venter Institute, I was considering returning to South Africa, and I was actually offered a lecturer position in the Department of Genetics at Stellenbosch University. After careful consideration, I decided that I was not yet ready to return home, as I was still wanting to learn more. It was during my last month in San Diego that I met with a local company called Bionanogenomics, who at the time were in the process of developing a new genome mapping technology for the detection of large structural genetic variation, which is obviously very common in a lot of cancers. I was approached then to return to Australia and establish the first genome mapping lab in the country, again at the Garvan Institute. My research was mainly then focused on prostate cancer in Southern African men, as well as prostate cancer bone metastases in Australian men. And this was all using this new iris genome mapping technology. So yes, once again, I found myself back in Sydney, this time living in the city and so much closer to the Harbour Bridge and Opera House, which I had come to love over the years. I was now a senior research officer and based at the Kinghorn Cancer Centre, which is adjacent to and formed part of the Garvan Institute. Our research team was finally reunited and formed the Human Comparative and Prostate Cancer Genetics team. I was also given a joint appointment as a senior lecturer at the University of New South Wales in Sydney, and this allowed me to assist with the mentoring, training, and supervision of students. So the initial plan was only to return to Australia for 1 year to assist with setting up the new lab. But then 3 years had already passed, and I was starting to think about returning to South Africa. After being away from home for more than 10 years, I was really missing my family and reminded myself that the plan was never to move abroad permanently, but rather to gain knowledge and expertise which I could bring back to South Africa. The entire time I was away, I continued to work on research projects relevant to South Africa and kept local collaborations. So once the decision was made, I was on a plane heading back to Cape Town, where I allowed myself to have a long-awaited break of 4 months before starting to search for a new job. Within weeks of seeking for a new opportunity, I was offered the Senior Research Officer position at the Center for Proteomic and Genomic Research, which you would know as CPGR. That's also where I got to meet Linda, and I'm really glad to see her online today again. After being in academia for so many years, I was ready to explore the dark side, as some would call it, and take on a role in a more industry setting. With my prostate cancer expertise, I was able to contribute to a collaborative project called MADCAT. This is looking at prostate cancer in men of African descent. And so with my previous knowledge on using the iScan instrument, it also helped me to become the iScan platform manager at the CPGR, and I was able to assist with genome-wide association studies using the newly designed H3 Africa array specifically for African populations. I must say a career highlight for me was being involved in the development of a local ancestry test. This was called Be Happy to Be You. It's a direct-to-consumer product. I was given the task to design a brand name and logo, and together with an extended team, including Dr. Caitlin Duran, who's also a member of the TB Host Genetics Group, we were able to establish the necessary automated ancestry pipelines. So today, the Be Happy to Be You product is being sold on its own website, as well as on Takealot, which is the largest online retailer in South Africa. And then lastly, I was also the genomics coordinator and a domain expert for Diplomics, which involves a network of omics labs in South Africa looking to improve local omics service provision. So after 3 years at the CPGR, I was considering to move back into research and a more academic setting. I applied for a specialist scientist position at the SAMRC and started in my new position within the Center for TB Research based at Stellenbosch University in June this year. Having the joint Stellenbosch University appointment as a senior researcher has also been very useful. I'm currently involved in various research projects, including the South African Human Genetics Database, which is the first project of its kind in Southern Africa, which is to recontact the Be Happy to Be You ancestry test clients and request their consent to use their genetic data for research purposes. Another project that I'm involved with is the study of host genetic factors contributing to the susceptibility to COVID-19. And this is in collaboration with many other local sites and partners. At this stage of my career, I'm very happy to be where I am right now, and I'm grateful to be part of an amazing team. And thank you to them for welcoming me. So making decisions about your own career path may not always seem easy, and is largely contributed or dependent rather on the opportunities that come your way. We often find ourselves being presented with various routes in order to achieve the same goals. At the end of the day, everyone needs to select the best option for themselves, even if it takes double the amount of time to get there. As a grade 12 high school student, I had the honor of meeting the great Nelson Mandela. His inspirational address at our high school on that day often reminds me of the importance to never stop learning and gaining new knowledge. This is certainly what I've tried to do throughout my own career journey. Looking back, I've realized that what always seemed impossible at the time is something that can be accomplished through hard work and perseverance. Thank you all for your attention, and for those that feel more comfortable contacting me with questions after today, please feel free to do so via email. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Desiree, and wow, what an impressive list of skills. Earlier, we had a video from CPGR from Paida Moye Kachambwa about genomic diversity in South African genomics, which was very interesting. So please go watch it. It's on our Instagram pages and also on Facebook at GK Stellenbosch, and for Facebook, you can find it on Golden Key Stellenbosch chapter. And here in the comments, we have one comment that said, and I feel the same way, so jealous of how much you have traveled, Desiree. And we have a question from Vuyasani. He's asking, how does one find these scholarships or research visit grants if your institution does not provide that for its students?
Thank you for that question. And yes, it's a very important one. I think I was somebody that, applied for every single bursary that was out there. And I also had sort of the intention of going no matter what. So even if it meant that I had to sort of take out a loan or potentially contact other philanthropic sources, I was going to do that. I actually wrote to the SAMRC at the time and told them that I had an opportunity in the US to do part of my PhD, and asked them whether they would sponsor me. And they actually then also offered me an overseas scholarship for the 8 months. So I think if you don't ask, you'll never receive. And so, yes, it's good to look at funding opportunities that are available, but nothing stops you from actually networking with individuals or reaching out to others that may be able to assist you with your studies as well.
Okay, thank you. Natasha also commented that she hoped you framed all your passports from the years. And then,
yep.
And then a question from Caitlin. Do you have any advice for those who may struggle to move overseas because they have family that relies on them?
Yes, that's also a very good question. I think when I initially left, the plan was to do a postdoc, which would last 3 to 4 years and come back. And it's not easy. I'm not going to candy coat. It's hard being away from your family. But I think if you enjoy what you're doing and you know that you're there for a specific purpose, you will actually allow yourself to enjoy being away. And knowing that the option is always there to come back. I think often people think, you've left South Africa, you've moved abroad, and now you need to stay there because by coming back, you might be considered to be a failure. I think, like I said, my intention was never to permanently move abroad because I love Cape Town too much. And I knew that I wouldn't want to be away from my family for that long. So coming back with that expertise and the knowledge that you have acquired while being abroad, I think that is what is invaluable. And that's what's going to make you attractive to local institutions, because they're going to want you to join them and to bring with you that knowledge that you have learned abroad.
Thank you. And then another comment from Natasha. She says, it's so important to realize that you can't map your life out perfectly. One has to be flexible, but also grab every opportunity that comes your way. And then a question from me, how challenging or easy was it for you to receive those travel grants to get the training abroad?
Yes, so like I said, I think at the time I was lucky that there were probably more travel grants available than they are now. But with that said, it was also a lot of hard work because I made an effort to establish networks and collaborations abroad. So every opportunity I was able to get. So by going back, I was already working on projects, which meant that they could also fund me to come over and attend international conferences. So I think it's extremely important to establish both a local network, but it would also be great then if you are able to make those international connections as well. But yeah, it's not easy, and I think it's gotten a lot harder over the years. But honestly, I think you just have to have that attitude that if you want something, don't give up. It's possible it might just be or seem difficult to get there, but honestly, it's just putting in a little bit of effort and just having that perseverance is what's going to get you through at the end of the day. Because not everybody wants to become a professor one day. And honestly, I still don't know what I see myself as at the end of my journey. And I think that's also important. You need to always just have yourself think outside the box and allow yourself to still explore all options, because I don't want to stop learning. I still feel like I'm ready to gain knowledge, but I don't think I'll be relocating abroad, because that probably aged me by 10 years with all my international moves. And I'm really happy to be back in South Africa, and I genuinely mean that. I think obviously coming back before the COVID pandemic, it was also the right thing to do at the right time. So I'm grateful for the way things have worked out. But yeah, I would just say the world is your oyster. You just need to make the best of it.
Thank you. Well, we are very happy to have you here. And just one more question. How does a student get involved in international collaborations? A question from Corinne.
Sure. So I think often your supervisors and those individuals that you see as mentors would be more senior staff, and many of them do have international collaborations. So maybe having a chat with them and seeing whether you could get involved in other research projects besides your own might also be one way to then sort of establish a network. And yes, there's so many people within the division, I know here at Tygerberg, that would be willing to guide students and to offer them advice, and my door is certainly open. So if you have a specific interest, just know who the right people are to speak to, and I'm sure it's all about one person connecting the other. So it's definitely possible.
Thanks so much, Desiree. That was such a great talk from both our presenters. I'm going to quickly launch a quick poll while I wrap up. All right, hopefully you guys can see that. So for those of you that don't know, I'm Natasha. I'm the advisor for Golden Key Stellenbosch, and I just wanted to take this time to thank all of the participants for attending the 2021 Tygerberg Career Fair webinar. And we would especially like to thank our keynote speakers, Linda de Waal and Dr. Desiree Petersen, as well as all the companies who contributed to making our first ever hybrid career fair possible. Your support and contributions are incredibly appreciated. For those of you that aren't in the BMRI foyer like me, I strongly recommend you come and pop down here. We have quite a number of companies that are here to chat to you about options that they have available for people that are graduating soon. We also have goodie bags for those of you that attended. So you're welcome to come pop down and get those. And if you do happen to take any photos and post them on social media, we'd really appreciate it if you tag us on at GK Stellenbosch. So just once again, on behalf of myself and the rest of the Golden Key Executive Committee, thank you so much to our keynote speakers, and then also to all of you for attending. We hope that together we can help you map out your career path. And I think what both speakers mentioned about using your networks is really important. You're never too young or to start building that network. I think that's my little piece of advice. Don't wait until you've got your PhD or you're a PI to start building that network. Build it now, even if you're an undergrad student. It will only help. So thank you so much. And with that, I wrap up our Career Fair webinar and welcome everyone to the pop-up Career Fair in the BMRI foyer. Thanks everyone so much. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.